My name is Tara Ford, and I'm 30 years old. I'm a wife and mother, and I live a relatively peaceful life with my husband, Kane, who is 5 years older than me. Together, we raise our energetic 5-year-old son, Max. Today, however, we find ourselves in the midst of a wedding celebration. The event is taking place at an upscale hotel, its opulence unmistakable from the moment we step in. The bride and groom are acquaintances of Kane's, though I know them only by face. It's clear that I'm a stranger in this world of luxury, yet there's an undeniable part of me that can't help but wonder, how much did all of this cost? Kane, ever the social butterfly, had already excused himself to mingle with some old friends. I, on the other hand, was content to sit quietly for a while and observe the guests. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses. It was a far cry from the more humble settings I was used to. After a while, I excused myself to visit the restroom. As I was about to return to the ceremony, I overheard a few voices that instantly made me feel uncomfortable. "Oh, look who's here. That defective piece of goods. Why is she even in a place like this?" one woman sneered. Confused and somewhat shocked, I paused. "What do you mean, Mom?" another voice responded. "Oh my goodness, you're right. Why on earth did we invite her?" Their words stung deeply, but they weren't directed at me just yet. They were speaking in my general direction, but I pretended not to hear, trying to ignore the tension growing within me. It wasn't just snide remarks now, it was full-blown insult. I turned away quickly, hoping to distance myself from the situation, but it was no use. "Wait right there, you ugly thing," someone called out, and I froze. My heart raced. "I know you can hear me." I didn't answer them. My name isn't "you ugly thing," and I certainly wasn't about to dignify their words with a response. I quickened my pace, hoping to get out of their reach. But then, unexpectedly, I felt a firm grip on my arm. Someone had caught up to me. The nails of the woman digging into my skin felt like a burning sensation. "I told you to wait," she hissed, out of breath from having sprinted to catch up with me. I was startled, but I quickly shook her off. She stumbled dramatically, almost as if it was rehearsed, letting out a loud cry of distress. "What a pointless act," I muttered under my breath. "Are you all right?" "How violent she is," another voice came from behind. A second woman had appeared, her tone dripping with disdain. She looked me up and down, her eyes narrowing with judgment. "Excuse me," she snapped, "but what is this all about? Who are you?" I stood still for a moment, trying to process what was happening. Who were these women? Why were they treating me like this? "Who am I?" I asked, my voice steady, but laced with disbelief. "Are you saying you've forgotten me?" At that moment, it became clear to me that I was not just an innocent bystander in this encounter. This was no random meeting. They recognized me, and that meant something deeper was going on here. My mind raced as I tried to recall where I'd seen them before. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it didn't matter. This was about to turn into something far uglier. "Well, all I can say," I replied, my voice calm but firm, "is that you seem quite self-absorbed and very rude." The tension in the air thickens as the woman before me sneers, clearly angered by my dismissive attitude. "Have we met somewhere before?" I ask, raising an eyebrow. At my words, the woman's perfectly shaped brows shoot up in surprise. "What's your problem?" she snaps. "How dare you take that attitude with me? If you've forgotten, I'll remind you. I'm your sister." The shock hits me like a wave. "My sister?" I tilt my head slightly, trying to piece together what's happening. Remember now? "Surely even your disappointing brain can recall that," she adds, her voice laced with sarcasm. "And this is our mother." Her words pierce through me like daggers, but I don't show any emotion. I keep my face calm, despite the intense anger building in my chest. "Don't tell me you've forgotten your own parent too," she sneers. I stare at her blankly, trying to suppress the overwhelming flood of memories I'm forced to confront. Someone by that name might have been close to me once upon a time, I think, my tone dripping with indifference. I glance at the older woman beside her, the one she claims is our mother, and my thoughts whirl, but I can't bring myself to engage with them. These people, These strangers weren't worth my time. I don't answer. Instead, I simply shake my head, deciding that it's not worth continuing this conversation. But my silence seems to anger them further. Just then, two men come running toward us, their footsteps rapid and urgent. "Hey, what's all the commotion?" one of them calls out. We could hear the shouting from over there. The man looks to be in a hurry. "Elle, are you finished with preparations?" But as he sees the scene unfold, he falters. "Oh wait, you're still in your regular clothes. You need to change quickly." The second man, standing beside him, looks over at me and stiffens. "Dad, Ron, there's an intruder who's crashed our wedding. Please throw her out right now." I feel the blood rush to my face at the word intruder. Elle, with an almost manic expression, points at me, shouting, "Didn't anyone teach her it's rude to point at people?" The reactions of the two men are starkly different. The older man, whom Elle called Dad, widens his eyes in surprise, before scowling deeply in clear disapproval. The man named Ron, on the other hand, freezes, his face draining of color, as though he's seen a ghost. "Why is she here?" he mutters. "I never thought I'd have to see her face on such a happy day." "Right?" the older man agrees bitterly. "She must have snuck in here by mistake. This is awful. Please call security, right away." I can feel their disdain, but I refuse to show weakness. "Hey, what are you saying?" I say, my voice growing slightly louder. "Watch your mouth." But before they can respond, a voice cuts through the tension. "Tara, so this is where you were. I've been looking for you." The entire room falls silent as Kane steps into the scene. All eyes are now on him. My husband looks slightly taken aback by the tension in the air, his eyes scanning the scene before him. "Sorry," I say with a smile, trying to ease the situation. "I meant to come right back, but I got caught up with some strange people." I walk toward him, a smirk tugging at the corners of my lips as I take his arm. Kane blinks, his eyes darting around at the hostile expressions directed toward me. It doesn't take him long to grasp the situation. He mutters under his breath. His body language shifts, becoming more defensive. That's my Kane. Elle, who had been staring at Kane in admiration, quickly turns back to glare at me, clearly seething with anger. Meanwhile, the two people she introduced as her parents still look confused, as though they haven't fully processed what's happening. Ron, clearly flustered by the sudden shift, is the first to speak up, trying to salvage the situation. Dr. Ford, I'm so sorry. It seems my wife has been very rude, and, my deepest apologies to your wife as well," he stammers, clearly uncomfortable. "Hey, Elle," he calls to his wife, "you apologize too?" Elle glares at him, her eyes blazing with frustration. "What? Why should I?" she snaps. Elle stands before me, her face flushed with anger, pointing her finger in my direction. "Apologize? She's the one who should be apologizing," she spits. "This shameless person snuck into our important wedding. I don't know how she even found out about it, but this woman is the disgrace of our family. We threw her out of the house years ago, and we were supposed to never see her face again." Her words hit me like a storm, but I don't let my emotions show. How typical, I think. Elle's voice grows louder as she continues her tirade. "She's our family's shame," Elle declares. "You wouldn't believe how much of a burden she's been. She couldn't even get into college. Wasted her time working part-time jobs, doing nothing but being a parasite in our house. We should have been thanked for putting up with her all those years." I don't flinch. I've heard it all before. The man, Ron, who had been standing beside Elle, looks back and forth between us, visibly shocked by the intensity of the situation. "What family?" he mutters, his voice quivering with confusion. "Who are you talking about?" Before I can answer, the older couple, whom Elle introduced as her parents, jump in to explain. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Ron," the man begins, glancing at his wife for support. "You see, we have a good-for-nothing eldest daughter. She's such an embarrassment that we couldn't even bring ourselves to mention her. We threw her out 9 years ago. Really, I don't know how she found out about Elle's wedding. What is she planning? Is she trying to ruin it? Is she serious?" I think to myself, But I keep my face neutral, unwilling to dignify their insults with a response. The woman beside him, my so-called mother, continues, "That's right, she's just a useless defect. Couldn't even get into college. What a waste. After high school, she just drifted from one part-time job to the next, never contributing anything." The insults keep coming, each one more hurtful than the last, but I've long since stopped expecting any kind of love or validation from these people. They aren't worth my time or energy. Yes, technically, these people are my family. That's what the family register says, I think bitterly. But the truth is, I've never felt like I belonged here. My parents dote on Elle, their precious youngest child, while I was left to fend for myself. I can't even remember when it started, but from the moment I was old enough to understand, it was clear. I was invisible to them. My father's family had been doctors for generations and ran a successful medical clinic. My mother worked as a nurse there. On the outside, we probably seemed like the perfect family, but beneath the surface, it was nothing but a toxic mess. As a child, I remember trying desperately to earn their love and approval. But the more I tried, the more I was met with rejection. Their reasoning? Your sister is cute and you're not. They always prioritized Elle, and after hearing those words over and over again, I stopped expecting anything from them. Fortunately for me, I had a sharp mind and a love for learning. I focused on my studies, determined to get out of this suffocating house as soon as I could. By that point, I had already accepted my role as the failed older sister, the one who didn't live up to their expectations. Listen here, my parents told me in my third year of high school, "We won't allow you to go to college. You're just a defective, good for nothing. You're lucky we even kept you this long. You'll start working right after high school, and you'll give us money to repay us for raising someone like you. No college for you. And don't even think about asking for help. We won't spend another penny on you." The memory of their cold words still lingers in my mind like a bitter taste. "You'll spend your life serving this household," they continued. "You'll be lucky if you can even get a decent job." But despite their cruelty, I didn't let them break me. In secret, I recorded those conversations, keeping them hidden away. I wanted proof of their abuse, a way to remember just how far they would go to break me. Elle, my sister, never missed a chance to flaunt her superiority in front of me. She'd boast about how she was going to become a doctor and take over Dad's clinic, using me as an example of what not to be. "I'm going to become a doctor," she'd say. "I'll work hard for big sister's share too." She always had that smug, condescending tone, as if she was the one deserving of their love. "Don't worry, Elle," my parents would say, "you're our pride and joy." Their favoritism was blatant and deliberate, and it hurt. But I knew better than to let it show. I just smiled and kept my distance. After graduating high school, I worked part-time jobs, barely scraping by. For 3 years, I struggled to make a living, doing whatever I could to survive. But with each passing year, I grew stronger. I learned to rely on myself and let go of the idea that my family would ever come around. Living at home during those final years was suffocating, to say the least. Despite their constant irritation with my presence, they wouldn't let me leave the house on my own. It was as if they wanted to keep me trapped, using me as a pawn whenever it suited them. But I had a secret. While they believed they had control over me, I had rented an apartment of my own. It was my small act of rebellion, a space where I could breathe without the oppressive air of their judgments. I kept up appearances, giving them the money they demanded for household expenses, but I did it while underreporting my part-time income, keeping their contributions to a minimum. Little did they know I had also started investing and gradually built up my savings. Then, when my sister, Elle, was preparing for her high school entrance exams, I was kicked out of the house. The reason? Elle couldn't concentrate with me around. As absurd as it sounded, I didn't protest. I took that as my chance to leave for good. They must have been surprised that I, whom they always thought was incapable of standing on my own, didn't return. But to them, it probably didn't matter. They only needed Elle, and that was the truth. It's been 9 years since then, and yet, as I stand here in the middle of this chaotic wedding, I feel strangely indifferent. The argument between my sister and Ron, her soon-to-be husband, rages on. I've completely detached myself from this family, and it shows. Today is supposed to be their big day, but for me, it's just another reminder of how irrelevant they've become in my life. Ron's voice cuts through the noise. Why are you defending that woman? He points at me with accusation in his voice. I've been telling you, she's an intruder. She doesn't belong here. I've been telling you. Elle shoots back. She's an intruder. Throw her out. Now. Their bickering fills the room, and I can't help but shake my head at their ridiculousness. In the midst of their squabble, my father's eyes catch mine. He freezes for a moment, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. Could it be? Could he be finally realizing who I am? Ford General Hospital, my mother asks, wide-eyed. The son of the directors? At this, everyone turns to us. My father, my sister, her husband, all their gazes focus on me and Kane. It's in that moment that I realize just how much they underestimated me all these years. Kane steps forward, his presence commanding attention. How do you do? I'm Kane Ford. This is my wife, Tara. I offer a slight bow, my smile as sweet and composed as ever. I can see the shock in my parents' eyes as they stare at Kane, and then back at me, struggling to make sense of it all. Kane's family runs a prestigious hospital, and he's not just the heir, he's a dedicated and promising doctor who never stops improving his skills. His background is everything my family could never understand. And to them, it must be a complete shock. My mother's mouth hangs open, and I can't help but smile inwardly. This is the reality of my life now, and they can't stand it. My sister's husband, Alan, who works as a doctor at a university hospital, steps in to smooth things over. What a coincidence. Dr. Ford's wife is my wife's sister, he says, trying to make light of the situation. This makes us family. Dr. Allen, thank you for seeing our son the other day. But before he can continue, I cut him off with a calm smile. Yes, thank you for the examination. However, after considering the options, we decided to get a second opinion. The words hang in the air, and Alan freezes, his face paling. It's clear he had been hoping that my son would become a VIP patient in his hospital. But I won't let him treat my son like a cash cow. Not this time. His face contorts with frustration, but he doesn't say anything more. Kane, ever the professional, simply nods, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with Alan's agitation. But then Elle, my own sister, snorts in disgust. What's this? She sneers. Are you trying to get back at us just because you married some rich doctor? You think that makes you special? I stand tall, my composure unwavering, as she continues to spew her venom. You're still the same uneducated, shallow person. Just because you married the heir to a big hospital doesn't mean you've changed. And you even have a son? How pitiful. Your child has to live with a mother like you. What a disgrace. Her words sting, but I don't let it show. The jealousy and bitterness dripping from her every word are too transparent. She's threatened by me, and she always has been. I give her a cool smile, my voice steady. Elle, it's not about what you think of me. It's about who I've become, and I'm proud of that. I don't need your validation, and I never have. Kane stands beside me, his hand gently resting on my shoulder as we face the chaos of the room. I've found my own way, and nothing, no insults, no bitterness, can shake me now. The silence in the room thickens as my sister, Elle, continues to glare at me with growing disbelief. Kane's words have just shattered the image they held of me, the image they clung to for so long. I stand there, calm but resolute, feeling a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time in years, I am in control. Tara, Kane says, his voice low but unwavering. Are these people really your families? I look at him for a moment, taking a deep breath. No, Kane, I reply, my voice steady. They're not my family anymore. A heavy silence falls over the room as I continue. Family doesn't yell at you for every little mistake, for spilling a bit of food on the table. They don't withhold meals as punishment, nor do they give hand-me-downs while lavishing their favorite child with brand-name clothes and laughing at how you look in your worn outfits. I feel the weight of those memories rushing back. Family doesn't throw away your study materials, telling you that you're too stupid to even need them, or soak your textbooks in water to ruin them. My words hit their mark, and I see my parents squirming. Their expressions falter, but they remain silent, unwilling to face the truth. Kane steps closer to me, his hand gently touching my shoulder in silent support. And family certainly doesn't throw you out barefoot in winter for not lending a book to your sister. I continue, my tone cold, or lock you in a storage shed in summer and call it discipline. They don't sell your belongings without your permission and then tell you to your face that you'll work like a slave for the rest of your life. I pause, letting the weight of my words sink in. My parents glance nervously at each other, unsure of how to respond. The neighbors even noticed how differently you treated us, how they could see the marks of your abuse. They stopped bringing their children to your clinic, knowing what you were like. I'm surprised no one reported you back then for child abuse. But it's too late now. The mention of their struggling clinic causes a slight twitch in my mother's face. She hadn't expected me to know about the decline of their business. But I did. My in-laws had done some research and found out about it, and they had made sure to keep me informed. Their empathy for what I went through, their anger on my behalf, made them dig deeper. Kane steps forward, his voice calm but firm. That's right. Tara's in-laws have been investigating your clinic, out of concern for her, and also as part of our research. They were just as outraged by the treatment Tara received as we were. And let me tell you, we've been keeping track. Ron, who's still standing with a skeptical frown, looks towards Elle, who shakes her head vigorously. Stop lying, she shouts. You're making all of this up. You're just bitter because you're a failure, a disappointment. I feel a sudden surge of indignation. I was never a failure. I was just the one you all decided wasn't worthy of your love or your attention. But I proved myself, and you can't stand it. I turned to my sister, her face pale with shock. What do you mean? I'm a failure? I didn't need you to validate me, Elle. I got myself into college. I started a business, and I became successful without any help from you. At this, the room goes silent. Elle's face twists in confusion and anger. What? You're lying, she stammers, her voice shaky. You couldn't even get into a decent college. You were a dropout, a failure. I smile, a soft, knowing smile. Actually, I went to college. I got a degree, and while I was there, I started my own company. It's a medical food-related company that even your precious hospital relies on. I'm the president of my own business now. And I did it all without any help from you or anyone else in this so-called family. Elle stares at me as if I've just revealed a hidden power. Her eyes flicker with disbelief, and she stutters. A president? Of a company? That's right, I reply, my voice calm but resolute. I built my life on my own terms. And despite everything you've said about me, I don't need your approval anymore. My parents, who had been desperately holding on to their delusions, are now looking at me with stunned faces. The realization seems to dawn on them slowly, like a cold wave crashing over them. How dare you? My mother spits out, her voice trembling with anger. You went behind our backs? You went to college and didn't tell us? We told you. You weren't allowed to. I cross my arms and stand a little taller. Why would I need your permission? I was an adult, and I'd already left your house for good. I wasn't asking for your permission to live my life. My father grinds his teeth, but says nothing. He's already lost this battle, and he knows it. Elle, on the other hand, is having a harder time accepting the truth. This can't be happening. You were always useless, a failure. I thought you must have died somewhere after being thrown out, but now you're successful. You even married the heir to a hospital. She trails off, her words faltering. Her jealousy is so thick in the air that it feels suffocating.
But I don't let it get to me.
No, Elle, I say quietly, my voice like ice. You thought I was a failure, because that's what you were told to believe. But I'm not your failure. I'm my own success, and I don't need you to tell me who I am anymore. The room is silent for a long moment, and I see my parents, once so confident in their control over me, now standing on shaky ground, their masks cracking. The tension in the room is unbearable, and I can feel the stares of the wedding guests as they watch the scene unfold. My sister, Elle, stands there trembling, desperately trying to maintain some semblance of control. Her facade is crumbling, and I can't help but feel a small sense of vindication. You see, I continue, looking directly at Elle. Maybe the reason I'm more successful than you is that I kept working hard, even while receiving unreasonable treatment from our parents. I didn't let bitterness consume me. But, of course, I had a little luck on my side, too. Elle looks like she's about to snap, but I'm not finished. But here's something else I heard that might surprise you. Did you really drop out of middle school? The atmosphere freezes, and I can feel every eye in the room on me as I drop the bombshell. Elle's face turns ashen, and her hand trembles at her side. What are you talking about? She stammers, trying to regain control. Oh, I heard it from our dear aunt, I say, my voice cool. You got complacent, thinking you could get into any prestigious school, but you didn't study at all. You turned in blank papers on exam day, and failed. Afterward, you became a shut-in, throwing tantrums at home. The room is silent as Elle's jaw clenches in disbelief. Alan's face grows increasingly stern, and my parents exchange worried glances. Elle tries to protest, her voice cracking, but I don't let her. You only started going out recently, after our parents introduced you to Dr. Allen as a suitable husband. That's when you finally emerged from your shell. I continue, my words cold and deliberate. Allen looks at her, confusion and suspicion clouding his expression. Elle, is this true? He asks, his voice tight with disbelief. You told me and our parents that you graduated from a prestigious university. You said you got your qualifications and were helping at the family clinic. Was that all a lie? Elle stammers, but it's clear she's trapped. That's not true, she yells, her voice shaking with panic. Stop spreading lies. But I only smile, knowing I've hit the mark. Well, I'm just telling you what I've heard. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. The room feels like it's closing in on her as Alan presses further. If you graduated from a university, you should be able to name just one professor from that university, right? Come on, Elle, tell me their name. The moment Alan says this, Elle freezes. Her eyes dart around the room, looking for an escape, but there's no way out. Alan's suspicion grows, and he pulls out his phone. I'll just call one of the professors from your department. They're acquaintances of my parents, and I know them well. I'll ask if there was ever a student named Elle in their program. No, don't do that. Elle screams, panic rising in her voice.
There's no need for that.
Just believe me. In a desperate attempt to silence him, Elle lunges for Alan's phone. With a violent motion, she snatches it from his hand and slams it to the floor, grinding it under her heel as she yells, "Don't try to verify anything. Just believe me." The guests gasp in shock, and the wedding staff watches in stunned silence. The commotion has drawn attention, and it's clear that Elle's behavior is crossing a line. Her eyes are wild, and her actions are erratic. Alan, visibly disgusted, steps back, his face hardening. The people around us are whispering, but I stand tall, my voice clear as I address my family. Elle's life is built on lies, just like everything else about her. And now, she's not even trying to hide it. Do you see now? My parents, once so confident in their authority over me, now look utterly defeated. The reality of their daughter's actions, her deception, her laziness, and her manipulation, hits them hard. But instead of apologizing, they continue to protect her, refusing to admit their own part in enabling her. Elle's hands shake as she stares at Alan, who is still processing the magnitude of the lies he's been told. He turns away from her, his face filled with disgust. "I can't believe I was fooled by you," he mutters, his voice cold. As the truth continues to unravel, the scene in the venue becomes more chaotic. Guests are whispering among themselves, some in disbelief, others in horror. The once joyous atmosphere has been replaced by tension and discomfort. The wedding, which was supposed to be a celebration, has now become a spectacle. I take a deep breath, feeling a strange calm wash over me. This is it, the moment I've been waiting for. The truth is out. My family's lies, their mistreatment, and their betrayal are no longer hidden in the shadows. And I don't need their approval anymore. As we walked out of the wedding venue, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The years of resentment, the anger, the feelings of abandonment, they all began to melt away, leaving only a quiet calm in their wake.
My family was no longer my family.
The people who once claimed to care for me had long since proven they didn't deserve any place in my life. The only family that mattered now was the one I had built, my husband and son. Well, shall we go home? My husband's voice breaks the silence, his hand slipping into mine. I glance at him, smiling brightly. He's always been there, steady and unwavering, and now that everything's out in the open, there's nothing holding me back. We've given the wedding gift, I say. We've fulfilled our social obligation. I don't need to do anything else. The past is behind me. He looks at me, eyes full of understanding. Are you sure you're done, Tara? He asks softly, his words carrying the weight of years of shared memories. It's as if he's asking if I've said everything I wanted to say, if I've completed my revenge. I smile even wider, my heart light. I don't care anymore. Let's go home. But then a thought occurs to me, and I can't help but add, oh, let's stop by the cake shop in this hotel on our way out. I want to try their super luxury cake. He laughs, a warm, infectious sound. Sure, let's go. Let's buy some cake to take home. With that, we step into the future, together, leaving the wreckage of the past behind. Months passed, and the fallout from the wedding confrontation didn't take long to spread. I heard that Alan had been sued for exaggerating diagnoses and charging excessive medical fees, which caused a scandal that ultimately cost him his job. My parents, desperate and ashamed, eventually came seeking my help. They didn't even have my contact information anymore, but word had gotten around. They showed up at my husband's hospital, making a scene. "We're the parents of this hospital's heir," they shouted. "She's our daughter. Let us see her right now." Their desperation was palpable, and I could practically hear the pleading in their voices. "We're family. She has to help us. After all, we raised her." The audacity. My parents, who had abandoned me when I was most vulnerable, now demanded my assistance, as if I owed them anything. They even went so far as to say, "We never thought she'd be useful, but I guess it was worth raising her. Who would have thought she'd marry someone even better than Elle?" But my in-laws, the ones who truly treated me like family, came out to meet them. Their gaze was so cold and authoritative that my parents froze, powerless under their stare. One of my in-laws spoke sharply. "What do you want with our daughters?" My parents, once so arrogant, scurried away without a word, their shoulders slumped in defeat. They tried reaching out afterward, but it was clear their negligence had caught up with them. Their clinic, once a thriving business, shut down in a matter of months. When I heard the news, I felt nothing. There was no satisfaction, no desire for vengeance, only a sense of finality. I was free. Underscore 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 underscore. Later, I learned that my sister and her husband had divorced. Their marriage, built on lies and expectations, had never stood a chance. The final blow came when Alan was sued and fired from his position at the hospital. Elle, desperate to prove she could be happier than me, sought out a married doctor more than 20 years her senior, hoping to catch a better husband. But when their affair was discovered, a scandal erupted, and the doctor's wife demanded compensation. Elle turned to our parents for help, but they, too, turned their backs on her. They disowned her, calling her a family disgrace. I didn't know what happened to her after that. I heard rumors, stories of her working at nightclubs and becoming homeless, but I didn't care. As for my parents, I heard they were trying to find work as a doctor and nurse, but no hospital would hire a couple their age. Rumors about how they had treated me had spread throughout the medical community, sealing their fate. I no longer had time to waste on people who weren't even family anymore. My focus was on my son, on my husband, on building the life I had always dreamed of. When my son's health problems were resolved with medication, After getting a second opinion at another hospital, I knew everything was right in my world. I protect my family, and I always will.